I know that at the start of July, you had said that you don't believe President Trump would be able to strike a trade deal with China, especially if Huawei is involved. You've called Huawei a non-starter. Are there any circumstances in which the U.S. should include Huawei in some kind of trade deal?
Of course not. I mean, it's not a trade issue. That's a national security. Huawei is a national security issue, and so you shouldn't be putting them together at all. Now, first off, I don't believe there will ever be a trade deal because I don't believe China is a fair competitor. They don't comply with the WTO. They steal our technology. They don't open up their markets. They're militarizing the South China Sea. They're helping Maduro commit genocide in Venezuela. So how could you? And by the way, they negotiate a deal and then try to change the terms. You don't do that and get deals done. So I don't believe there'll be a deal, but Huawei is non-negotiable.
Interestingly, and we know that you're a key China hawk, you said before that you don't think any American should buy any Chinese product. How realistic is that?
Well, I think what we ought to do is help American companies. So what we all ought to say to ourselves is, can we buy something made in America? Because what we do know is that more Americans will have jobs. Our focus should be, how do we create more jobs in this country? So we ought to do everything we can to buy as many American products as possible.
But Senator Scott, what phone do you have at the moment, for example?
Well, what I have is I have a Samsung. So if I could buy a product 100% made in America, I would try to do that.
So do you think any companies such as Apple, for example, should be bringing back their production to the US? Are you talking to companies in that way?
Well, I think all American companies ought to say, how can I create my supply chain in the United States? I mean, they want Americans to buy their products. And so I think if Americans know more about where products are made, and they understand that the fact that China is not our friend, they are absolutely our competitor, an arch competitor, that they will buy more American products. I am tired of America trying to help China succeed instead of helping American businesses succeed. I just found out in the last few weeks that our Peace Corps, which is a great U.S. organization, is spending $3 million a year in China. China is a wealthy country. Why are we spending money in China when we could take that $3 million and spend it somewhere in my state or another state to improve the lives of American citizens?
So let me get back to the global supply chain here, because even if companies are able to move a big chunk of their global supply chain back to the U.S., there are certain parts that are imported from China. The material is from overseas, whether from China or somewhere else. Your constituents, many of whom are small businesses, are fully aware of this. Ending all Chinese imports or taxing all Chinese imports would mean higher prices at the end of the day. Is that an acceptable trade-off then?
Well, first off, let's remember, what I've always believed is if we collect anything in tariffs, we ought to reduce taxes to the American citizens at the same time for the exact same amount. Now, if you do increase the cost of doing business with China, it does improve the chance that American companies will sell products. So I don't believe we ought to use the tariffs to collect taxes that impact the cost of things for American citizens. We ought to give it back to them in taxes. But if we want jobs in this country, which is where I want the jobs, we've got to say we've got to buy American products and do everything we can to buy American.
What about the exporters? What about the farmers, for example, the jobs there? What are you saying to them?
Well, one, I want to do everything I can to help the farmers. We have a significant ag industry in my state. I want to do everything we can to help them sell more of their product around the world, not just in China, and we ought to do everything we can. And we ought to do everything we can to make sure we have the best exports, so we have more jobs in that manner. But here's the difference. We've got to understand when we buy Chinese products, one, it hurts American companies. On top of that, we're dealing with a government, a Chinese government, that is not our friend. I mean, they're not fair to us. I mean, stealing our technology consistently, not opening up their markets. I mean, that's not fair to American companies.